Abortion happens every day. Millions of people around the world will have an abortion each year. But the majority of those people will never talk about their abortion experiences. What if millions of people broke their silence and told the truth about their lives and their choices? This is Melissa Madera in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and you're listening to the Abortion Diary podcast. These are the stories we share.
I am Valencia again, and back in 2001, I was in my senior year in college. I actually became pregnant midway through. I was scheduled to enter the Army to fulfill a 3-year contract. I did decide to go ahead and give birth to that child. However, a year later, after giving birth to that child, which was a boy, I actually had become pregnant again by his father, whom I had later, after giving birth to my son, found out was not the man for me due to difference of opinions, difference of how we wanted to raise kids, and a number of different things that I identified that I no longer wanted to be with that individual. However, I continued to have a sexual relationship with him. So back in 2003, prior to actually going to my first duty station, which was in Germany, I learned that I was pregnant. That was around June, July time frame. Already considering myself a single parent, financially, emotionally, I knew that it was already a struggle with one, and that I was not mentally prepared to accept the responsibilities of raising 2 kids. I discussed the matter with my mother, who fully supported my decision not to bring another child into this world. It was a very hard decision for me to make, knowing that there were actually other options out there, such as adoption, to make. I just couldn't see myself birthing a child and not raising it. So for me, it was just an easy decision just to opt not to have it. And due to the fact that I found out so early with that pregnancy, I decided to go ahead and have the abortion. So I did that around 6-7 weeks. It was very hard because I am so in love with my child. I went ahead and went to Germany along with my son. I deployed for a year in late 2003 to mid 2004. I returned, and I continued to have a sexual relationship with his father. Was not on birth control or anything, and due to my medical history, I was actually told that it was a possibility that I had become infertile. So birth control for me, in my opinion, added additional weight to me, something that I had to be concerned with the occupation in which I was a part of, and so I just chose not to do it. And I definitely didn't want to do any of the shots, so I tried to remain as safe as possible. And he was the only individual that I was actually having sexual relations with, so I just didn't bother. However, back in May of 2005, I had come home and I had visited with him, and a month or so, well, I had started dating another guy, and a month or so later, after around June, July of '05, I again found out that I was pregnant. However, I was under the impression that it was the new guy in which I was dealing with, who has now become my husband, and I thought it was his child. I actually carried that baby for about 8, 9 weeks until the math was done and it was identified that I was a lot further along than I had anticipated, which let me know that it was not my husband's child, but yet again my son's father. After knowing how he parents, knowing how we definitely was just together just because of sexual reasons, I did not want to have another child with this man. So yet again, I was on the same table having another abortion. It was a very hard decision, again, because I had already told myself that I wasn't going to do it. But he already didn't take care of one child. I definitely couldn't see having another one with him. So I ended up having 2 abortions within a 3-year time span. Since then, I have attempted, after getting with my husband, attempted to have kids, and ended up actually miscarrying quite a bit. Don't know if the abortions have played a role in those miscarriages. And at times I have sat back and questioned whether or not my decisions were the right decisions. Whether or not I possibly killed the next president or whatever. Regrets I've gone through, especially after having those miscarriages and everything. It's definitely has affected me in the future. However, I have been able and blessed to have one additional child, in which I'm very grateful for. However, I have to still sit back and wonder, what if I've never done those procedures, if they wouldn't have hindered me from having kids in the future. The first time I had an abortion, I actually found the location from my sister-in-law, and later found out that the OBGYN that was actually the practicing physician on at that site was my regular OBGYN. So my experience in the clinic was okay. They were very helpful. They actually did not try to discourage me from having the procedures, but I will say that they did provide me with the education to let me know that there were other options out there. However, having a relationship with my OBGYN, and he's been my OBGYN since I was 12 due to the medical issues that I've dealt with. So we have a really close relationship. He has one with me and my family. He advised me that that was probably the best decision that I could make based on what I was already going through at the time. So I utilized that same clinic, that same physician, a year and a half after that for the second procedure, and I had the same experience as I did the first time.
Do you think that being in the military affected your decision, or like the way that you were able to access abortion?
Being in the military actually affects a lot of decisions. I recently just found out I was pregnant. And I was deployed. And I volunteered to deploy for this assignment for personal reasons as well as professional reasons. And when I found out, the first thing I was thinking was, Lord Jesus, I gotta get rid of this baby. Because I just mentally was not ready for a child. Nor was my husband. We had discussed not having any more kids. And I definitely would have preferred for me to have gotten pregnant based off of the decision that we agreed upon, not just as, oh, you're pregnant, as a surprise. And being in the military, you definitely have to plan out your personal life. And because a personal decision definitely affects your professional life, especially being a military officer. It definitely makes it harder, especially when you're trying to move up in the ranks. And the military, as everyone knows, is a man's military. And so being a female, it makes it harder to compete when you're pregnant. So do they say that it doesn't affect us professionally? They say it doesn't, but in the long run it does. Because the mother that I want to be and the soldier that I need to be don't necessarily meet. So it's always at some point a conflict. Being in the military, it makes it very hard to access abortion clinics. Military bases don't necessarily sit in major cities where most abortion clinics are. So you have to find time to try to get to those facilities. Oh, by the way, if you're in another country, some countries don't even offer abortions. So now you have to try to get to that facility. And if you're deployed, you just can't say, I want to take leave. So they have to find out that you're pregnant. So yeah, it's definitely, they don't mix the two. It's very hard. It's a serious conflict.
Did you find it difficult accessing the 2 abortions that you had when you were in the military?
These 2 facilities, no, due to the fact that during those 2 procedures, the first time I did it prior to actually, the first one I did it prior to moving to Germany. So 2 weeks before I moved to Germany, I had the procedure done. No one knew. The second one, I actually had to tell my chain of command. They tried to discourage me from doing it. However, they supported me and gave me leave prior to deploying. So I actually came back home from Germany, had the procedure done, and then returned to Germany and then deployed to Iraq from there.
How far away were you the first time from a clinic?
About 2 hours. It's about 2 hours away. I was actually here in Augusta. And the second one was a 10-hour flight from Germany to Atlanta. And that's not talking about the travel from the airport to the clinic.
And then what happened this time that you're pregnant?
So, I was deployed, as I stated, in Kuwait. Actually really did not know how far along I truly was. My husband and I had discussed having an abortion, and then I would return to Kuwait. However, the chain of command really was not in support of the abortion, and so they returned me back to the States permanently. After finding out, once I got here, after I found out, I actually was a lot further than my husband and I thought. I was actually about 9 weeks along. And when I had the first 2 abortions, I was in my 20s and I was not married. Now, I'm in my late 30s, and I just told my husband that at 9 weeks, I just couldn't do an abortion. There was no reason, if they weren't returning me to my position, that I could think in my mind why we were truly having this abortion, other than the fact that he and I had not discussed having any more kids. He agreed. Neither one of us were just ecstatic. However, the baby would be loved. The baby wasn't going to be abused or anything. We just accepted that we had another baby on the way, and this definitely was the last one. However, at 11 weeks, we've found out that the baby has since passed. Heart has just stopped. And so I'm actually going through a miscarriage after we have finally come to the realization that we were having another baby and accepting the fact that we had a baby on the way. So it was kind of a bittersweet scenario. When you start to accept the fact that you're having a baby and then it's just taken away, it's just, it kind of, it's sad. But also we knew we weren't ready for another baby either. So we've come to accept that we're no longer have a baby on the way. So that's it.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Typically women that are stateside do not discuss the pregnancy with their chain of command because we're off on weekends typically. So it's too easy to take a Friday off, have the procedure done, rest Saturday and Sunday, go to the doctor on Monday and say, hey, I'm not feeling good. They give you quarters, where they'll just let you stay at home for a few days and you have that time to rest. However, it's not the same when you are deployed, because you have to stay in country for a certain amount of time before you're allowed to even take leave. So being that you cannot take leave just on your own will, you have to go to your chain of command to say why you're leaving country. So being an officer, especially a high-ranking officer, was a very uncomfortable situation to discuss this matter with men, because I'm not discussing this with women. Most chain of command is men, and so you're discussing a personal matter with men who have wives, and they can't understand why you as a female would want to even have an abortion when their wives who are not in the military get to stay at home with their kids. But it's a totally different situation. So
what happens right after you have discussed this with chain of command?
They get you out of there. They have you out of country within being deployed. They have you out of country within about 2 weeks max. If they can get you out the next day, they would. But you have to go through the proper procedures and this paperwork. It's not just, oh, this person is pregnant, they leave today, But as soon as they can get you out of there, you're on the next plane out of there. You can't deny them. Women have the right to make their decisions. They won't deny them the procedures. They'll just put you in a place to where you can make a decision that's best for you and your family. And if that's the best decision for you and your family, that's what they'll do.
Why did chain of command try to discourage you?
They said that they didn't want me to make a decision based off of work. And that's what they felt that I was making a decision based on. Not only, it wasn't just based on work, it was based on a number of factors. And as I stated, my husband and I had discussed that we would potentially talk about having another child in a year or so, but we actually just weren't given that opportunity. We just found out we were pregnant before that discussion even came up. Actually, after we had my daughter a year ago, my husband was actually scheduled for a vasectomy. We canceled it with the possibility of talking about having another baby. But we wanted to discuss it first. So I had never gotten pregnant that fast. So this was like a big shock for us. Culture. I just don't get pregnant easily. I don't have a problem with necessarily once I get pregnant. It's kind of a catch-22. So when I want to get pregnant, it's not easy. I guess I can't say I have a problem with getting pregnant. I don't have a problem with getting pregnant. I have a problem with holding the babies. And so they have yet to find out what that issue is. But he did say that falls up under the realm of infertility. So, yes.
So you end up having miscarriages?
I did. I ended up having 4. Yes. Ended up having 4.
And the doctors don't know?
They don't know. Actually, as I stated, I'm going through a miscarriage now. And once I'm able to pass the placenta, they want me to give it to them. They really are interested as to what is going on with me physically with the babies. I remember one time I went to the clinic to have a procedure done. I don't know if it was the first or the second. And I remember meeting this married couple. And they had 7 kids. And they were having an abortion. And I remember sitting back and thinking, you're married. How can you be having an abortion, you know? But I see myself as a married woman, and I can see decisions, life, you know, makes you make decisions based off of where you are right then and there. The atmosphere was what it was. Other than seeing that particular couple, I was really in my own world. It was a very hard decision for me to make. I just remember just crying a whole lot. Because it was just hard. You know. I would have rather just not been pregnant and not have to have made that decision. But that wasn't the case. The experience was not bad for me. Not only did I have my doctor there that I knew, I had my family was there to support me both times. My sister-in-law went with me. My brother came. My husband, who was then my boyfriend at the time. So it wasn't like I was going through this experience by myself. They were very supportive and let me know that it was okay. And that they were there for me. So it was a lot easier on me than what I hear a lot of other people go through when they're by themselves. I just didn't have that experience.
So you felt supported?
I did.
Have you been able to talk about this experience?
I have. I've talked about it on several occasions, and that's why I didn't have a problem with actually sharing my story. It actually, as I stated, I'm able to give a testimony to those who have thought about doing it, who need to do it, who don't know what to do. And so I told them why I had to do it, or why I felt that I needed to do it. And so, if for nothing else, it was just able to be a testimony to somebody else, to let them know that they're not the only one who's thought about doing it or who's had to do it for whatever reason. So, traveling home to have the procedure, that's the only thing that you have on your mind at that time. So it's mind boggling, because you're going back and forth in your mind. Am I doing the right thing? Is this what I should be doing? You know, why am I doing this? You're weighing the pros, you're weighing the cons, and it's a number of different factors in which play through your mind. And so you are bombarded by these thoughts and hunted by the idea of what you're doing until the procedure is done. That probably is the hardest part, just your mind wandering. So it's just very rough, and you beat yourself up, like, I should have did this, I should have did this to prevent that, you know. So this was paid out of pocket. So being that in the military, the medical insurance in which we have, yes, it's free, but it's free to an extent. It's not free to utilize in outside facilities. You have to go and get approval to utilize outside facilities outside of the base. So most military people pay out of pocket. So let's give you an example from the second time when I had to come home from Germany. So I spent probably about $1,100 for a round trip ticket. I had to pay about $415 for this procedure. You know, I had to get a rental car because my vehicle's in Germany. So I spent a good almost $2,500 just to come home to have this procedure done. And that weighs on you too. You're like, is it worth it? I'll just stay over here, have this baby, you know, and is it worth going home to do this? But my sanity outweighed any costs I had to spend, because I just could not have another child with that man. I could not. So yeah, it's very costly. I won't say that they won't cover abortion procedures, but it's so much you have to go through in order to get that approval, that by the time you get that approval, you're a lot further along than if you just go ahead and have that procedure done out of pocket. And then you don't have as many people in your business either. It's not just going to the facility and paying for a military person. Now, it's different for a woman who has complications in her pregnancy, or they identify something that's wrong with the baby and she opts not to go ahead with that pregnancy. It's a lot easier. It's a difference. But just to alleviate a pregnancy that's no complications or any issues identified. No. It's very difficult, very timely, very costly.
Why do you want to share your story?
I actually felt that we all go through something at times, and even though at times I have sat back and regretted my decisions, I felt as if my situation has been no different from the next woman that's come behind me that has questioned whether or not she was making the right decision. And I've had several friends as well as family members that have come through and gone through similar situations dealing with individuals in which they were in relationships. And when you're growing up in a Christian household, you're taught that you're supposed to be fruitful and multiply. And to be fruitful and multiply, you also have to be able to provide for those kids. And so I felt like, even though my story is not necessarily about abuse or even just necessarily surrounded around financial reasons, there's a woman out there that can relate to me, whether she's in the military, whether she's just a woman who has already had a child and do want more kids, however, just not ready mentally at that time or financially at that time, that it's okay and that we are given the right to make decisions that are best for our life at that moment. And we have to make those decisions based off of our life and not based off of where somebody else wants us to be.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I thank you for letting me share my story. I thank you for giving women and men the opportunity to hear other people's stories and, letting them know that they're not necessarily the only person, and then I'm pretty sure somewhere in somebody's story, somebody can find something similar that they can relate to that will help them make their decision a lot easier. May be hard, but it'll make it a lot easier to say, hey, I'm not the only person.
Yeah. What would have made it a little easier for you during the time that you were going through it, during your abortion?
Not to be pregnant. Not to have made that, not to have have to make that decision. Nothing else would have made it easier. I can't say having a baby. I can't, because I don't know where that would have put me now. But just not getting pregnant, not having to put yourself in that situation to even make that decision. That's not how life is, though. Because I know women who've used condoms and still ended up pregnant, who were on birth control and still ended up pregnant. So, but for my situation, just not getting pregnant would have been a lot easier. Yes, ma'am.
How does it feel now to have shared your story?
I've shared it so many times that it's actually, you feel better to get that off your chest and not feel like you have to hide that part of yourself. It's a decision that you had to make, whether some people agree with it or not. It was my decision, and it's something that I'll have to deal with for the rest of my life. And so just to be able to get it off my chest makes it a lot easier to say it's okay. It may not have been the right decision, but you know what? At that time, it was the decision I needed to make.
As always, for more information about the Abortion Diary podcast, visit us on the web at theabortiondiary.com or email me with your questions or comments. If you would like to share your story, send me an email at melissa@theabortiondiary.com or visit our website, click on Share Your Abortion Story, and fill out our contact form. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to help us reach more folks, please subscribe on iTunes and write a review or rate this podcast. Your reviews and ratings will help us grow in the iTunes rankings and reach more people. I would also love to hear from you. You can also follow The Abortion Diary on Twitter or Facebook. And The Abortion Diary can't continue without your support. Support The Abortion Diary by making a tax-deductible donation to us on Fractured Atlas, or buying some of our wristbands or totes on Store Envy. And a special thanks to you for listening. I'll be back next week with a new story.